Have you ever stood next to someone knowing you should speak, and somehow your mind goes completely blank? You reach for the safest line possible. How's everything going? They answer with one dull word. And suddenly you're both trapped in that unbearable silence, wishing you could disappear. If that sounds familiar, you're not broken. You've simply been taught small talk the wrong way. Here's what this video is really about. I'm going to show you why those awkward moments happen, uncover the psychology behind what socially confident people do differently, and give you one simple 3-word phrase that can turn a dead conversation into something natural and interesting. But here's the truth most people never realize. They assume they're bad at small talk because they don't have exciting things to say. That isn't the real issue. Most people believe conversation is about saying clever things. Wrong. They think it's about being funny or naturally smooth. Also wrong. The real advantage has almost nothing to do with talking. It has everything to do with noticing. However, there's a specific way to turn what you notice into connection. And that's where almost everyone fails. Picture this. You're at a business event, cafe, or gathering. Someone is standing nearby, and you know you should say something, but your thoughts freeze. So you fall back on, how's your day going? Or what kind of work do you do? The conversational version of dry crackers. The other person gives you a short answer. You both stand there awkwardly and you think, I'm terrible at this. But here's what's really happening. You're treating them like a machine that needs the right command. You're not connecting with a person. You're trying to run a social script. Meanwhile, the confident people around you aren't using magic. They aren't born charismatic. They're doing something entirely different. And you can learn it in the next few minutes. However, before I show you what they're doing, you need to understand why your current method fails so badly. When you ask generic questions, you place pressure on the other person to perform. They need to come up with a good answer. Think about how they sound, and basically carry the interaction for you. It feels draining, which is why they shut down. But then I noticed something powerful. Watch what happens when you stop asking questions and start making observations. Instead of, what are you reading? You say, that book looks like it survived a rough week. Instead of, how's work going? You say, you look like someone who just escaped a morning meeting. This works because you remove pressure and add curiosity. You're not demanding explanations. You're simply noticing something and sharing it. Therefore, they can engage or ignore it without feeling like they're being interrogated. But here's where most people still ruin it. They make lifeless observations. Those are technically observations. But they kill momentum because they invite nothing back. The difference between a conversation opener and a conversation killer comes down to 3 elements. I'm about to show you. However, before we get there, let me ask you something. If this is already changing how you see small talk, hit like and subscribe, because I break down social psychology like this every week. Also, leave a comment with your most awkward small talk story. I read them all. The 3 ingredients of magnetic observations are specificity, playful exaggeration, and implied story. Let me explain. Specificity means noticing details most people miss. Not nice shoes, but those shoes look like they could survive a mountain expedition. You're pointing out exactly what stood out. Playful exaggeration adds humor and energy without going too far. Instead of, you look tired, try, you have the face of someone who just learned their coffee was caffeine-free. It's dramatic enough to be fun, but believable enough to feel natural. Implied story means your observation hints at something larger. That laptop has lived a life. Suggests there's a story behind all those stickers. You create curiosity without directly asking for it. Then something interesting happens when you combine all 3. Your comments become conversation magnets, because you're not just speaking, you're painting a picture. The other person wants to confirm or correct. Therefore, they naturally start sharing without pressure. However, here's where it becomes powerful. You can stack these observations to create conversations people actually enjoy following. For example, you notice someone in a bookstore holding 3 completely different categories of books. You say, that's either the most unpredictable reading list ever, or you're shopping for 3 very different personalities. They laugh and explain the books are for relatives. Then you follow with, that's either incredibly thoughtful, or you're competing for favorite family member this year. Now you're not doing small talk anymore. You're creating playful chemistry. The key is reading their energy and adjusting. If they seem busy, keep it short. If they're engaged, continue building. Therefore, you're not forcing anything. You're responding to what they give you. This works in professional environments too. Instead of, how's the assignment going? Try, you have the focused look of someone either solving a puzzle or plotting revenge. It's polished enough for work, but interesting enough to break routine. The beauty of this approach is that once you think this way, you'll start noticing opportunities everywhere. However, there's one phrase that ties all of it together. The 3-word opener I promised earlier. But first, you need to understand how to use it correctly, because timing matters. The 3 words are, I bet that coffee rescued your morning. I bet that book has a backstory. I bet that presentation was unforgettable. This phrase works because it does 3 things at once. First, it makes an observation about their experience. Second, it shows you notice them as an individual. Third, it gives them an easy opening to respond without pressure. However, the real strength isn't the phrase itself. It's how it forces you to observe and engage with the person in front of you. When you begin with, I bet that, your mind automatically searches for something specific and interesting to finish the sentence. Therefore, you stop relying on boring questions and start creating real connections based on what you genuinely notice. The phrase becomes a bridge between awareness and conversation. But here's the secret that changes everything. The goal is not to become amazing at small talk. The goal is to become someone who makes others feel noticed and interesting. When you learn this skill, small talk changes from something you suffer through into something you actually enjoy. The next time you're in a situation where conversation feels forced, remember this. You don't need to be impressive. You need to be curious. Notice one detail, add a playful exaggeration, hint at a story, and begin with, I bet that. The conversation will grow naturally from there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.